Honestly, the build quality of the exterior is about as good as you're going to find anywhere.
From a mechanical perspective, what an underrated platform this is.
Well, surely the driving experience is going to be amazing, right? Well, apparently. Okay, you might not know this, but the second generation Toyota Mark X might just be the perfect car. It offers everything you'd ever want from a car in this class: a powerful, economical, and apparently reliable engine, a fun yet refined rear-wheel drive platform, loads of practicality, a classy interior, great levels of tech and equipment. It's pretty rare, so it even offers some exclusivity. And wait till we tell you what they cost. However, there are quite a few things that you really do need to know about these before you take the plunge, starting with some concerns surrounding the exterior. First of all, it's really important to know that these things are extremely popular in Japan's tuning scene, and this often means that they lower them and fit larger wheels. Sometimes to fit the larger wheels on lowered suspension, some people roll the guards. The problem here is if it's not done properly, it can result in rust and corrosion issues, and the problem with that is it can be a challenge to fix it. And this actually opens up the conversation regarding accessing spare parts. Let's say hypothetically someone rear ends you and you need a new rear bar and a new tail light, or some dickhead reverses into the front of you and you need a new front bar and new front headlights. Well, you can't just pop down to your local Toyota dealership because all this stuff has to come from Japan. And look, yes, sure, this is something that chances are your insurance company is going to have to deal with, but even then it could mean that you're waiting weeks, maybe even months for the spares to come in. Although in saying that, this isn't something that's just exclusive to import cars. We've covered a whole bunch of Australian factory delivered cars that they even have supply chain issues with getting spare components. So yeah, it's a bit of a how long's a piece of a string scenario. Next up, a few owners mentioned that when they took delivery of their cars from Japan, they needed some new suspension components. We're talking everything from bushes that had worn out, even complete strut assemblies. But there can be good news with this because the Mark X shares a whole bunch of mechanical components with locally delivered Toyota and Lexus models. So unlike getting spare body panels, getting spare mechanical and suspension parts can actually be really easy. Now, the hot tip here when it comes to getting parts is to do what we do and go and check out our mates at Automotive Superstore. They've got over 400,000 different parts and accessories, and we're talking everything from suspension components to infotainment systems, lighting setups, full drive accessories, car care products, so much stuff. Plus, you can order these parts online and have them shipped straight to your door, so that means no dealing with traffic or trying to find a park or dealing with annoying other customers in the shop. Check them out via the link below. Now, back to what these things share with our locally delivered models. Underneath the sheet metal here is Toyota's N platform, and that's the same platform that you'll find underneath the Lexus GS and IS. Also on the IS, aside from the 2.5 and 3 litre V6s available in Japan, the Mark X's mechanical package is nearly identical to what powers our local IS 350 models. Just that there's a chance you can also get a Mark X with a manual transmission, which is something that Lexus has never really offered in great numbers here in Australia. Something else that Lexus failed to offer, and this will depend on the model or what option boxes the original owner ticked in Japan, a factory-fitted supercharger was also available. And that turns what is a already pretty quick car into a bit of a weapon. Also, while the Mark X has been available in Japan in a host of various models over 3 iterations, most imports will be a Premium, Sports or Gs, which was renamed the GR Sport after the 2016 update. Now, I say most on the Aussie market because occasionally you will find the odd, very special edition pop up, like this exact car. This is a Gazoo Racing Edition and it features a carbon fibre roof, so it is very, very rare. But look, back to the common exterior concerns and problems. That's about it. Nothing else really goes wrong with the exterior. I mean, honestly, unlike some of this car's, let's say, Australian and European sourced competitors, we couldn't find any reports of electrical issues or paint issues or fit and finish problems. Honestly, the build quality of the exterior is about as good as you're going to find anywhere. Honestly, the only real concerns you have to worry about with the exterior come from whoever the previous owner was, how they treated it, or who actually imported it. See, unfortunately in the world of grey imports, there are some really dodgy operators out there. We've heard of examples of paperwork being falsified, odometers being wound back, even to the point where the car that you thought you've bought in Japan tends to not be the car that actually arrives at your front door. So we cannot say this strongly enough. You need to investigate who imported the car just as much as the car itself. And at the very least, just make sure all the import documentation is all up to scratch. Basically, make sure the car comes with an auction report, an export certificate, and a compliance plate, and just make sure all of those details match. Now, we've actually made a full import guide video, and we highly recommend checking that out if you're buying any grey import. The link's down below. But something else that might make the Mark X even more tempting to you is what these cost on the used market. The very cheapest examples are hovering around the $20,000 mark, but the most expensive examples, they top out at about 35 grand. For comparison, an equivalent, say, condition, kilometre and age Lexus IS and Mark X at the low end of the pricing spectrum, they're going to be around about the same. But at the other end of the pricing spectrum, take something special like this, it's going to be hovering around that $30,000 to $35,000 mark. An equivalent Lexus IS 350 F Sport, it's going to be asking easily $10,000 more. So it's great that the exterior build quality is excellent and that pricing is very, very tempting. But you know what the epitome of cool is when it comes to cars? It's when something looks pretty normal to most people, but to those in the know, they know it's something special. Take the recent 911 ST, for example. To the untrained eye, that just looks like a really nice, normal 911. But to those in the know, they know it is about as special as a 911 could possibly get. That is the epitome of cool. And the Mark X is the same. Even the base models, to most people, it just looks like a pretty nice Camry. But to those in the know, they know it's something special. And look, yeah, okay, this Gazoo Racing Edition is clearly a bit fancier. Lowered ride height, body kit, lovely wheels. But even then, I just love the fact that it's not too overt, it's not too shouty, it doesn't draw any unwanted attention. For me, I think this is the epitome of cool. However, the interior is where things might start taking a bit of a negative turn, unfortunately. See, for many owners out there, the interior can just feel, honestly, a bit dated and not as premium as you might expect. Okay, look, this particular Gazoo Racing Edition, it feels a bit fancier than the normal ones with its carbon fibre and host of other features and improvements. But as one Mark X owner put it, these things can feel like a Lexus IS 350 with a Camry interior. Now, that might sound like a negative, but as we found when we reviewed the Camry and the Lexus IS for that matter, it might also mean that nothing goes wrong in here. I mean, sure, this might lack some of the interior design and ambience of some of its more premium European competitors, but unlike plenty of them, chances are everything in here will still work. I mean, seriously, we trawled through a bunch of different owners groups and forums, and a massive thank you to everybody that helped us research this, but honestly, we struggled to find any what we would call common issues in here. Okay, look, as we've found with so many Toyota and Lexus models, the infotainment systems, they can leave a lot to be desired. They generally feel a generation or two old. And depending on the exact example you're looking at, there is a high chance that if it's fitted with the standard infotainment system, you're gonna have to learn Japanese or at least get really, really good with Google Translate. But the good news here is updating the infotainment system is a breeze. Again, go check out Automotive Superstore, they'll have you covered. And also, again, because this shares so many components with locally delivered models, if you did need a spare part, which look, chances are you're not going to, but if you need like a new window switch or an indicator stalk, these are easy to come by. Also, while the interior might not look all that schmancy, I tell you what, it feels like it's chiseled from granite. Like, it's just so solid. The fit and finish in here is top notch. Also, according to the owners, these interiors, unlike plenty of its European competitors, is incredibly resilient and just wears really well. Even the gloss black plastics apparently don't scratch up too easily. This is the Gazoo Racing Edition, so you've obviously got the carbon fiber, but there's no scratches. It can get a bit filthy from your fingerprints if you've got oily hands like mine, but overall, even in this car, wear and tear is fantastic. Also, the ergonomics are spot on and there's loads of adjustability. And typical for Toyota here, just the seat comfort is bloody great. And then in terms of actually living with this interior as far as practicality goes, you've got bloody big glove box there, you've got a little storage cubby hole under here that's perfectly sized for your phone, actually probably 2 or 3 or 4 phones in there. Got another little cubby space here for pens and business cards. You've got duo cup holders with a removable center section so that can be cleaned easily under another little trapdoor, I don't know. You've got a slidey armrest here, more storage here, little movable shelf there, pretty good sized door bins, and that'll fit a smallish water bottle there. You've got I don't know what this bit's for. What? Okay, can you tell me what would you store here? It is so flat, it's a bit flimsy. Pointless is that. Spot for sunglasses up here, nothing under the seats. Pretty good practicality. Now, as far as what stuff you're going to get in terms of features and equipment and safety tech, look, obviously this is going to vary depending on the exact example you're looking at and the trim spec and the year and a whole bunch of other factors. But think of it this way, what you'd get in a base spec Mark X is going to be pretty much equivalent to what you'd get in a base spec Lexus of the same iteration type period. But there are some really cool features like the powered rear sunshade, adaptive headlights, and intelligent parking assist. Even in terms of safety equipment, the base spec early models, they come with Toyota's pre-crash safety systems, as well as all of the usual stuff you'd expect. The Mark X also comes with rain sensing windscreen wipers, but there could be an issue here, and this is something we see across so many manufacturers. OEMs will often try to charge you ridiculous amounts of money for things like replacement wiper blades. It can be daylight robbery. Plus, sometimes they do a rubbish job at actually wiping and they don't last very long. Luckily, Wipertech can fix all of this. We genuinely use Wipertech wiper blades on all of our cars because they're super easy to order, they're a breeze to fit, and they wipe like their little Teflon embedded natural rubber blades' lives depend on it. Plus, if you order yourself a set via the link down there, you're going to get 15% off and free express shipping. That is, unless your name is Taz and you own this very car, because in that case you're going to get a set of these for free. But if you're not Taz and you'd like a set of these for free, all you've got to do is volunteer your car for us to feature, and if we feature it, yeah, you're getting a set for free. Message us on the socials. And then in the back seat of the Mark X, I'm exactly 13 centimeters taller than Mark's ex-teammate Sebastian Vettel. This is in my driving position. Cop the amount of knee room in here, okay amount of foot room. The only drama is that because this seat is quite low in comparison to the floor, my knees are up in the air a little bit. The actual seats are quite comfortable. There's actually a good amount of lateral support. The fabric in this one is great, by the way. It's a really nice back seat to sit in. One ergonomic fault, but the transmission tunnel is bloody huge, so I wouldn't want to be sitting in the middle and the back. Then in terms of features and practicality back here, and again, every trim spec and year model is going to be different on what you get, but this one has its own air vents, map pockets, pretty rubbish little sized door bin there, and a pull down armrest with two more cup holders here, and that's about it. Not hugely equipped in the back seat, but it does the job. And then in the boot, there is so much space back here, but also, unlike some other cars in this class, these back seats, they fold down for even more practicality. Okay, so now you're probably thinking, well, surely the driving experience is going to be amazing, right? Punchy V6 engine up front, rear wheel drive. What's not to love? Well, apparently, it's the transmission. Loads of owners do not like this transmission, and maybe it's just like the infotainment system and it just feels a generation or two old compared to other cars in this category. Even in sport mode, flick it across and then select a gear and wait, and there it is. Even accelerating, select a gear, and there it is. It takes forever. Honestly, look, forget using the paddles. Even in sports mode, they're just honestly infuriating. Now, according to a few owners out there, there are some businesses developing a software update for the transmission to hopefully fix these shift speeds. And I tell you what, yeah, the car needs it. Also, and this is, I think, typical for Toyota and Lexus, the throttle pedal, it lacks that instant response that you might be expecting. It just feels spongy and a bit delayed. But the good news is this is something that can be easily fixed with a throttle controller. And then we come to the complaints regarding the cruise control. See, according to the owners, the cruise control can only be set between 47 and 115 kilometers an hour. But the problem here is that apparently the speedo is about 6 kilometers an hour out of whack. So therefore, technically, you can't actually set the cruise control at the legal 110 kilometer an hour speed limit. This also means that you can't set it at 120 or maybe 130 kilometers an hour if you are the sort of person that likes a more enthusiastic trip on the freeway, which is obviously not something you should ever do. Don't do that, don't be a dickhead. Now the good news here, apparently there are aftermarket cruise control systems that you can install in these, and that fixes the problem. For advice on that, owners groups, forums, that's where you should go. But aside from those complaints, I've got to tell you, this is an outstandingly good car to drive. Overall, this thing feels like, I'm going to say the perfect halfway point between a Lexus IS and a GS, but then with a bit of extra muscle under your right foot here, it's just fun. Also, and this is something we said about the Lexus IS 350, these things are deceptively quick. It doesn't necessarily feel really fast, but 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, under 6 seconds, that's a rapid car. Actually, fun fact for you, this has the same power as the IS 350 F Sport, but it's actually slightly lighter. And I don't know if it's the suspension calibration, but I feel like this is set up just to be more driver focused, a bit more involving than the Lexus. I love the IS 350 F Sport, and it is a luxurious ride. This just feels, I don't know, a bit sportier. Also, if you're considering buying one of these as your daily driver, some owners have reported fuel consumption figures around 7 litres per 100 kilometres, others over 12, even over 13 if you really want to sink your right foot. But overall, this means you could potentially get over 1,000 kilometres from a single tank. That is impressive. With how much the owners of these things rave about the driving experience, obviously I went into this expecting it to be a really good thing to steer. I wasn't expecting it to be this good. This is an outstanding package. Honestly, this blows so many other cars in this category out of the water. But what about the mechanical concerns? What's the story there? Well, unfortunately, I can't tell you because I'm not a qualified mechanic. But you know who is? It's Jim.
The 2GR family, the V6 petrol, they are widely considered to be one of the most reliable domestic petrol engines out there. On these, occasionally we do see the odd water pump leak, not common though, and it should also be mentioned that the water pumps on these are made of aluminium, unlike a lot of their European competitors where they're made of plastic. So they do leak occasionally, but they're usually pretty good. Some of the early 2GR FSEs in these were known for having some timing cover oil leaks. That was a production issue and most of them were fixed under warranty. Now just on those oil leaks, in this application the 2GR is mounted longitudinally, so the whole timing cover in the front of the engine is actually quite easy to access and you can do it all in the car. Unlike when the same engine is in the RX Lexus models, it's mounted transversely and it's quite hard to get at. In some cases people say you drop the engine to do it, but yeah, in these everything's easy to get at. Occasionally we've seen some thermostat issues. In some cases the thermostat gets stuck open. Not a huge drama there, just runs cool, you'll get a fault code typically. Other cases where the thermostat gets stuck shut and can cause an overheating event. They don't like to be overheated, and that has in some cases gone on to cause head gasket complications. But that is not a common issue at all. We have seen a few complications where the purge valve sticks open. Typically that will log a lean air fuel ratio fault code. Not a big deal, pretty easy to fix. I'm always banging on about timing chains with European models. The timing chains in these are pretty much bulletproof. The only time I've ever seen one of these with a timing chain issue is typically from neglect, and even then they actually have a pretty high threshold for neglect. And just on that, the neglect thing, it's interesting to point out that these will take so much neglect, unlike some of their European competitors where they are just a bit fragile and really suffer when they're neglected. With these, I'm not encouraging anyone to neglect it, but they are way more tolerant.
So Mark X ownership is becoming pretty bloody tempting, but you've got to ask yourself, for what these cost on the used market, what else could you buy instead? If you're watching this from Australia, you obviously have the Holden Commodore and the Ford Falcon. From the Euro and UK manufacturers, you have everything from the BMW 3 and 5 Series, Mercedes-Benz C and E-Class, Audi A4 and A6, and the Jaguar XE and XF. And then from Hyundai, you have the Genesis, and from the Mark X's own backyard, obviously the Lexus counterparts, as well as the Crown, or Toyota's struggling arch nemesis Nissan, or in this case, Infiniti with their Q50. But with this thing, you're pretty much getting all of the positives of those cars with very few of the negatives. And as a value for money package, I tell you what, you're going to be hard pressed to find anything that offers better bang for your buck. Okay, there's arguably an extra level of care and attention needed when it comes to buying a grey import, and you could be paying a little more when it comes to insurance. And like any car, yeah, okay, it's not perfect and it does have its idiosyncrasies. But if you're willing to sign up to the quirks and features that make the Mark X so incredibly special, yeah, you should buy one because this has to be one of the most underrated cars on the market. In fact, if you're tempted to buy this actual car, Taz is throwing around possibly selling it. If he goes ahead with that, we're going to put all the details down below. However, before you go rushing out to buy a Mark X, just before you do that, check out one of these first. But I've got a question for you. If you went to buy this or this, well, what would you buy instead? Let us know in the comments. See you next time. A host of components with locally They
do leak occasionally, but they're usually pretty good. I don't know why you gave that cheeky smile there. It was a bit weird.